Hello, Garland Nixon here, and going live. There are rumors of a massive Russian offensive in the near future, and Kiev is talking about a gigantic mobilization. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here. How are you? A beautiful Sunday afternoon, and I'm sure people are doing all kinds of stuff. Um, Somebody has nearly live. Yeah, that's right. I'm nearly live. I think I'm alive. I'll be on Moats today, the mother of all talk shows, to talk about my Twitter situation, a very interesting situation where I have a verified account on Twitter. I pay for a verified account on Twitter, and Twitter has notified me that they can't verify me as the owner. And so the account is locked or suspended permanently. Interesting situation. We'll see how that gets resolved. At any rate, let's talk about what's going on in Ukraine. There are things that have happened. One of the things, and I'll throw this out, that kind of caught my attention within the last few weeks, and that is I read that Russian President Putin had visited, I forgot what the hell region it is. I can never keep up with the Russian, Volgograd, whatever the heck, but some region apparently in Russia. There seems to be, and I don't know, maybe it was in Ukraine. I can't keep up with it, but bottom line is President Vladimir Putin visited an area where in apparently there's like a headquarters for the Ukraine special military operation. Apparently he met with some big bosses. He talked about things that people in special that have military special operations talk about, but there seemed to be a thought, a feeling, an intuition, if you were, right? And intuitions can often be very, very powerful and correct. I go by intuition often. Intuition is one of the things that you use, one of the tools that you use to navigate the world, right? We use logic, we use data, we use historical context, and we use our intuition. And if you don't use logic in your methods for understanding and navigating the world, then you are going to make some really big mistakes. Likewise, if you don't use historical context, if you don't use intuition, things of that nature, all of the tools available to you, then you're not going to make a good decision. And particularly, you're not going to be able to kind of understand the direction that things are going. Oftentimes, intuition, you walk into a room, something doesn't feel funny, something ain't right. That's intuition. You don't know what it is, but oftentimes it's because your brain picked it up. There's so many things coming together that your brain comes together and says, all of these things make sense. And consciously, you don't understand it, but your brain gets it, right? That's what I'm saying here. Under the circumstances, people have for many months, and you see me was talking with Scott Ritter every Wednesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. And you know that Scott and I have been talking for a long time, ever since last September, a year ago, here within the next week or so, wherein there was the Ukrainians launched a massive counteroffensive, and it kind of revealed that the Russians didn't have the number of troops. They didn't have the firepower that they really needed in Ukraine to get what they wanted done. They did a call up and they began training their troops. And the question became when, how long is it? So, and there was a talk, well, October, the Russians are going to launch a massive fisted counterattack. No, it's going to be November. It's going to be December. Then it became, they're going to wait until the ground freezes and the ground gets hard and they can move their tanks and boom, they're going to attack. So there was great speculation as to not whether the Russians were going to launch a massive, a counterattack, blitzkrieg style attack, not whether, but when. Of course, there was discussion about training. Well, they want to make sure their troops get trained first. Oh, they want to make sure they're properly armed. And there was discussion after discussion. If you've been following my channel, you would know, what Garland's position was. And that is, If I was in Russia, I wouldn't. If I was the Russian leader, I wouldn't be in a rush, because as long as I'm winning, I'm going to keep winning. And what I meant was this, and I always have to add this caveat to a discussion. I have to add this as context to the discussion about the conflict on the ground in Ukraine. And that is, that's not the whole of the conflict. That we have a conflict, not just between Russia and Ukraine, but more so between the US empire and the world. And Russia is just part of it, and Ukraine is just part of it. The US empire wants to take Russia out, take China out, and regain full and total economic control of the world. That's really what it comes down to. It's about the money, bruh. It's always about the money. So, that being said, the Russians and the Chinese and the various other countries in the global south, on and on, understand the complexity of this clash of civilizations. Really, that's what it is. It's a clash of economic, a clash of cultural, a civilizational clash, wherein the neoliberal leaders of the United States and London want control of the world, and they don't want to give up colonialism. They don't want to give up the countries in the global south that they exploit. And Russia and China says, A, you ain't taking us. We're not going to be like them. You're not going to come in and take our resources and control our country. We're going to remain independent. And now you can say they're doing it for the good of the order, or you can say that they're doing it for their own good. Whatever the case, Russia and China has decided to ally with the global South countries and to empower the global South countries. And I look at it like this, and this is all part of the discussion. So what Russia has and China have decided is this. Imagine this. We're going to fight this big guy, me and Joe. And there's some other people over there that really they're willing to fight, but they don't have anything to fight with. So we give them a gun, we give them a uniform, we give them rations. We arm these people so they can join in the fight against a common enemy, right? Economically, politically, diplomatically, Russia, China, Iran, etc., are helping to arm the global South countries, helping to arm the weaker countries, so they can join in the fight against a common oppressor. I think I'm not judging it right, wrong, or indifference for the purpose of this argument. You already know how I feel, but I do think that this is the way things are going. Like it or not, agree with it or not. Okay. And that being said, that takes us directly back to the battlefield. As I said, if I'm Russia, I'm not in a big hurry to launch a counteroffensive and get this thing over, because I need time. Not that I'm sacrificing the lives of my soldiers there, and say, because some people might say, well, what about the soldiers on the battlefield? You're sacrificing their lives for time. I look at it like this. Those soldiers on the battlefield are there to defend my country. If I don't address the entirety of the challenge to my country, then the whole country gets wiped out. So the soldiers are part of a fight. The other part of the fight is diplomatically, is economically. It's building bricks. It's building my relationship with China, the global South, strengthening them, helping the global South and the African countries so they can yank the rug out from under imperialism and colonialism, basically the US and say France. They're swiping money from these countries. They're exploiting them. If I, as Russia or China, help West Africa pull out from under French and US colonial rule, then I deny French and US colonial rule access to that money that they can use to come after me with. I make their lives more difficult, so it's harder for them to come after me, because, hey, they now got problems, growing economic problems of their own. They got diplomatic problems of their own. They got to decide whether to militarily go against them, when in fact they've used all of their military resources up going against me. So bottom line is this: if I'm Russia, if you just view Ukraine through the lens of the ongoing battles in Russia, it makes sense for Russia to end it all, to do a big fist battle, and to start punching, right? And they should have did it long ago. If you view Ukraine through the lens of a greater struggle that includes a coalition, I call it the Eurasian-led coalition, which now it also is, one could argue it's being led by some of the Middle East, in Iran and Saudi Arabia. So if you look at this through the lens of this universal struggle between the Eurasian-led coalition and the U.S. empire, it makes sense for the Russians to string this thing out, or at least not to be in a hurry. Meanwhile, let me go further. Even on the battlefield, from one perspective, look, many people are familiar with the infamous rope-a-dope fight. Down goes Frazier, right? It was historical. A lot of people aren't old enough maybe to have seen it or remember it, certainly. But what happened? We know what happened. Um, Muhammad Ali, who was not just a great fighter, who was a man who, many of us, if you respect his craft, he was one of the greatest because of all the things that he did. One of them was Muhammad Ali always said, I won every championship before I got in the ring. Why? Because he worked out harder. His road work was harder. I think, who was the other guy like that? Rocky Marciano. So it was the same kind of thing. These were people who did this insane workout. And so they were going to outwork their opponents, and they were going to be great championships because they were going to be in better condition than you are. They were going to be mentally more prepared than you are, right? So they were going to be physically able to outlast you. That's the key. Outlast you, right? So what did Muhammad Ali did? He faced a larger, stronger opponent, and people said, hey, man, you got no chance. This dude's big. He's strong. He's powerful. You're going to go toe-to-toe with him. He's going to knock you out. And Muhammad Ali knew that they were right. That if I physically go up against this person, I'm going to lose that fight because he's physically dominant to anybody. The guy's a monster. So here's what I'm going to do. And he even said, rope-a-dope. What does that mean? I'm going to go on the ropes. And basically, when you say rope a dope, you're saying the other guys. Basically, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm smarter than he is. You're saying, when I fight this opponent, I'm going to use all my advantages. Some of my advantages are physical. In that instance, one of his physical advantages, I'm going to be in better condition. I'm going to be able to outlast him, right? I'm going to be able to do this, right? And this is critical in the battlefield. I'm going to exhaust my opponents. In talking to Andrei Martyanov, he said the Russians actually part of a military strategy they have is, and there's a word for it, I forgot what it is. Not for what I heard it, but it was Russian. But at any rate, I don't recall it. But part of a particular Russian military strategy is to exhaust your opponent. What was the rope-a-dope about? Muhammad Ali said, I'm fighting you, and here's what I'm going to do. You like to punch. You're a big guy, and you win by throwing big punches and knocking your opponents out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you punch. I'm going to protect my face. I'm going to protect all the places that you punch, and I'm going to let you hit my arms. I'm going to let you hit my gloves, and I'm going to absorb that until you get tired. And when you get tired, I'm knock you out. He went for 7 rounds against his opponent. And what did he do? At seven rounds in, his opponent was exhausted. His opponent was throwing punches, and his opponent was tired. And how can you tell? His punches get weaker. He don't have what he had before. At first, he's landing haymakers, wham, wham, wham. Then 6th round, those haymakers, they ain't quite haymakers anymore. And by the 7th round, they're love taps. He's running out of steam. What does Muhammad Ali do? A man who is again, if you study Muhammad Ali, the man outworked. Like I said, you study a Marciano, you study a Ali, you find one thing similar. Both now there are differences in it. Marciano didn't have the speed and quite the speed. He didn't have that. Ali had insane speed, right? The guy was, you watch the guy, you see videos of him, and he'd tell people sitting at a table, punch me. And they'd say, what, punch me? And they go to punch me, move his head. They couldn't punch him. Literally, you could stand in front of him and try to punch him, and he was so quick that he could duck the punches, right? So he had incredible speed and ability, but he was a smart guy. So what does he do? He lets you punch, punch, punch. Those punches get softer and softer until he realized, you ain't got it anymore. You ain't got much in the way of punches. And when your punches are gone, your speed's gone. Everything's gone, and I have outworked you. I am in better condition than you are, and now I'm at 100%. I haven't thrown a punch for 7 rounds, and you are tired. Muhammad Ali comes off the ropes. Now he starts dancing and ducking and moving. It just knocked him out. The fight was over. He exhausted his opponent, and once his opponent was exhausted, he did what was it was. I'll put it like this: at the point that his opponent ran out of gas, that fight was over. It's over. I've been saying for a while. If you look at the dynamics of the Ukraine war, it's already over. Perspective, as I put it like this: if you and I are playing chess and we look at it, and everybody sees 3 moves and it's checkmate, 4 moves. If I do this, you'll do that. I'll do that. I can only do this, this, or this. You're going to do this, 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 and it's checkmate. As soon as we see that, the game's over. There's no point going on with this game. Turn the table over, reset, and start again. Right? Okay. So I go all that to go back to the field. And that is, for a year, people have been discussing when the Russians are going to make their big counter offensive. They've been looking at the numbers. They've been looking at the amount of horsepower, firepower that the Russians have been bringing to bear on the front line, and that they have the ability to bring to bear. Right now, there's one other factor that I think has to be considered, and that is the level. If you understand the Russian culture, very, very cautious. I've said time and again, the Russian culture is the type that a person looks both ways before crossing a one-way street, right? So there is no doubt that out of an abundance of caution, one of the things that the Russians are doing is only using the minimum amount of horsepower, firepower they need to confront Ukraine, because if they are attacked by NATO, if they are confronted with NATO, they want to be able to strike hard and heavy. They want to be able to protect themselves if the big guy comes. So they're punching on Ukraine, but over at the corner of their eye, they know NATO's over there, and they're saying, "Look, man, we don't want any trouble. But if you come looking, if you get froggy, we got a big fist." And so they don't want to use that up. I guarantee they are maintaining 80% of their firepower. They see Ukraine as the puppet. It's a glove on the hand of the U.S. empire. So their position is, no doubt, we're going to fool with these people, but over here, we're going to keep all the big horses, because if NATO decides they want to fight, we got to be ready for that. Okay. So that's why I've said all along, if you listen to all of the things that I just said, it is not in the best interest of Russia to end this early. If I'm Russia, do I want to end this thing before this BRICS summit? And now I've got another gigantic economic and diplomatic victory. Would it have been better for them to end it last March? No. The thing about that Russia's looking at is, look, hey, man, BRICS is very important, and expanding BRICS is going to be a great help to what we're trying to accomplish, and a great hindrance to what the U.S. empire is trying to accomplish, which is to maintain global economic dominance. So realistically, if you're looking at it, isn't it better for Russia, in a counterintuitive way, to have had this thing to drag out past BRICS? And in fact, what happens January 1, 2024? And that is, Russia becomes the leader of the BRICS coalition, right? Okay, so there's a rotating leadership presidency, whatever you call it. Russia starts January 2024, and the next BRICS meeting will be in Russia. So Russia, I think, is exhausting their opponents in 2 ways. They're exhausting the physical and kinetic capabilities of their direct opponents in Ukraine, right? I'm making them use up everything they got. I'm letting them, again, Ukraine is recently, there's been a lot of articles. They're running out of soldiers, men. I say men, but who knows who they're throwing men, women, and children in there and onto the battlefield now. So they're running out of soldiers. So you're exhausting their ability to put people on the battlefield. You're exhausting their military supplies, their tanks, their helicopters, their weapons. You're exhausting those things, right? You're exhausting the political support that they have in their patron countries throughout the U.S. empire. The longer this goes on, the harder it gets for the U.S. and its vassals to justify to their people spending all of this money on a conflict in a distant land that is in no way benefiting them. So they are exhausting. This is political exhaustion. This is kinetic and physical exhaustion. This is every kind of way that you can, every manner of conflict, economic exhaustion that you can, any way that you can phrase this. It is a rope-a-dope, as I would say, a rope-a-dope style conflict. Russia can do this for a long time. They're just like, we're going to let you keep punching. You're going to run out of stuff, run out of everything. Your people are going to be angry. And now what we're getting is, and I think this is an implication, this is the seventh round where the guy who's fighting Ali, his punches are starting to land real softly. Where those punches that were hitting hard, wham, wham. I'm sure Ali had everything up, but he's taking some rock solid punches from a big guy, bam, and they're jarring punches. And they're not jarring punches anymore. They're love taps. So where we are now, where Russia is now, is these counteroffensive, these offensives that are being launched. There was the so-called big counteroffensive that was fruitless. And now we have a bunch of mini counteroffensives going on around all over the place. So that means the punches are getting softer and softer. I suspect, maybe possibly, this is a possibility. I don't know, because again, if I'm Russia, I might drag this damn thing out until you guys collapse. I might let you keep punching until you collapse of exhaustion, and I forgot what it is, but in martial arts, there's a term, and basically it means the same thing. It means that at some point your opponent gets so weak that you can touch him with a feather and he'll fall over, right? It could very well be, if you're Russia, you let this guy keep punching until you just move out of the way and he collapses of exhaustion, and that is a legitimate military strategy. It's not just waiting to see what happens. It is an actual legitimate military strategy to exhaust your opponent to the point of collapse. Remember what I said? I've used that term often. Collapse. I think that's how this thing ends. But so, as Ukraine talks about, we may have to do a mass mobilization, right? A mass mobilization. Everybody from 18 to 20, bad news for you, you're going to the front, right? You'll excuse me. I've been a little busy this morning, so I had to have something to drink, running around outside in the heat. Okay. Ukraine's now saying, look, but so what is that? That's an admission that they're running out of troops, right? So Ukraine, they're using numbers, 1 million, 3 million, something like that. Men, that's what we'll come up with. We'll come up with 1 to 3 million people. But let's talk about that for the sake of argument. Let's say Ukraine said that we're going to do that, right? That any men between the ages of 18 and 60 is now going to be in the military. And it's, you've heard me talk about this before. That means all you got left is women, and they're all going to die. They're all going to die. You're going to have an entire nation where all the men are dead. It's a genocide. It's a genocide it will be a puppet genocide if they were able to do that, where the U.S. empire says, hey man, you're out of cannon fodder. How many men you got left? Oh, well, we got 3 million men left between 18 and 60. Saddle them up, dude. Saddle them up. What happens when we run out of those? Call Poland. We're going to call Poland and say, Poland, it's your turn, bruh. It is your turn to die, right? So we are at a point, I think, where very, very soon it will become obvious that Ukraine just doesn't have the numbers of soldiers to continue to assault. And if they don't have the number of soldiers to continue to assault, it's going to be real hard to defend too. Now, that could mean, and I'll throw this out here, that could mean that Putin's meetings with Vladimir Putin, Russian President Vladimir Putin, that his meeting with the leaders of the special military operation was, you guys be prepared to come off the ropes. I don't think it's, as of next Thursday, we're going to come off the ropes and knock these people out. Based on the Russians, I think it would be more something like this, because this is the way I would think, and certainly wouldn't you. Here's what we're going to do. When they get down to this point, right? We have a point of exhaustion. We are exhausting there. When they get down to this point of exhaustion, and we have particular metrics that we'll use, when we've destroyed this many tanks, this many this, that many, whatever, right? Whatever metrics they use, right? When we get to this point, we'll launch a massive counterassault. Right? Or what the Russians could do is they could launch a number of counterassaults, major counterassaults in different areas to collapse the line in different areas. Maybe they'll punch through the line in one area. Maybe they will launch and this is what I would do, a rolling assault. Whereas the offensive would not be a massive offensive in one particular area to punch through. It would be a heavy lean where the whole front line leans forward and you got to defend with all you worth. Now, that's an option. The other one could be we're going to punch through in one area and then we're going to go there. Now, the problem with that is if you've got a contact line, a long contact line, and you punch through in one area and you go through, you're behind the lines, you're subject to counterattack from all directions. So it could be, or you could swing around from one end and you could flank. There's any numbers of things. I don't know. Not a military man to that level. All I'm saying is this. It is quite potential. It is, I'll put it like this. It's not unreasonable to suspect that at this point, a year after the Russia's mobilization, based on all of the things that have happened economically, et cetera, politically, diplomatically, that the Russians are saying prior to, because again, what's happening? Pretty soon we're going to have the fall rains and things will get muddy and mucky. Then theoretically you could have a winter where everything's hard and cold and they could attack, or you could very well have another winter that's exceptionally warm and it's just mucky and muddy the whole winter. So the Russians kind of have decision time. If you're going to attack, you probably need to do it here very, very soon. So I would suspect if the Russians don't launch a massive counterattack in the next few weeks leading up to the rainy season, they're going to sit this one out too. They're going to roll through the winter and continue exhaust them again. That maybe there could be a feign. Maybe, in fact, President Putin went to meet exactly so these people will think he's going to attack. That maybe realistically, and this is an option that if it was me, to be quite frank, this would be my option. I'm going to see how long you can fight. I'm going to see how long you can go. Because if I know I'm fighting the U.S. empire, right? I know I'm fighting this big beast in the back. What I'm going to do is say to the U.S. empire, let me see how long you can play the game. You're going to pretend that I'm not fighting you. You're going to use Ukraine as a glove. You're going to use them as a fist to punch me with, right? And if you really want to fight, you got to come out from behind that and you got to admit that it's really you, right? If I'm Russia, I may just say, and this could be it, I'm going to see how long you can do this. I don't think you can do it, but so long. I'm going to see how long you can do it. And if you don't come from behind the curtain and admit, okay, it ain't, I mean, everybody knows it, but if you don't come from behind the curtain and says it's not Ukraine, it's us, at some point, Ukraine will collapse on its own. It'll fall to pieces. So if I'm Russia, there it is. Again, if it's Garland Nixon, I ain't launching a big counteroffensive. Not doing it. I'm sitting this thing out. This conflict gives me, in a paradoxical kind of way, it gives me cover. It gives me the cover. I don't have to make any decisions. I don't have to sit down and work out a deal. I don't have to come to whether or not I'm going to work out a deal. I've already told you what I want. I don't have to force it to say, you got to give it to me or else. Nothing. I can just let this thing roll on out, continue to go, continue to punch, continue to demilitarize you and make you throw your stuff in there where I blow the hell out of it, continue to create political instability in Russia and in the United States. If I'm Russia, I'm like, there's one thing you really don't want, Joe Biden. One thing you really don't want. And think about this. If I'm Russia, this is why Garland Nixon, I don't launch an offensive if I'm in charge. Election season's upon us, isn't it, Joe Biden? Isn't it, Democrats? Do you really want to go into the election year with this friggin' mess hanging over your head? And now, if I'm Russia, think about this. It's election season, right? And during election season, things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse, aren't they? If I'm going to launch a counteroffensive, I'm going to do it next October. What I want you to do, see, because, okay, let's say I want to negotiate at some point, which the Russians know they can't negotiate with these liars, but let's just use that. If I want to negotiate at some point, I want to negotiate when you got to have a deal, right? So what am I going to do? When do I want to negotiate? I want to do it next summer. I want to do it next September, next August. I want to do it when you got to get out from under this thing, when it's weighing heavy on you because you got an election coming up, when your opponents are beating the hell out of you. Trump's going to beat the hell out of them with Ukraine. And Trump's standing there saying, elect me, I'll get you out of this mess. That's what Trump's going to say. This is a disaster. This is a mess. Elect me, I will get you out of this mess. That's what Trump's going to say. If I'm Russia, I look at it and I want to put the pressure on the Biden administration. And I'm going to say, oh, you really want me to launch my offensive now? You really would like it if I launch my offensive, if I end this thing, if you can get this thing done, finished, over by January 1st, that will give you time to shake off the problems and issues, to redirect what you're going to do, to come up with a plan, and to go into election season, right? Okay. And to say, hey, we finished, and declare victory and go home. But if I'm Russia, I ain't giving you that opportunity. Dragging it out. Now you're running. And now your opponents, what's RFK Jr. doing? What's Cornel West doing? What's whoever, Marianne Williamson, she's just one of them. But what are these people doing? They're beating the hell out of you with Ukraine. They balled Ukraine up like a newspaper, and they're beating the hell out of you. And America's tired of it. America's like, we've had enough. We want out. Well, the neocons can't get out. They can't get out. Now, if I'm Biden, it's an election. Can I start a new war? Well, here's what we're going to do going into the election. We're going to go to war with a superpower. And then that's when Trump says, elect me and I'll get you out of this mess. At this point, if I'm Russia, I'm not saying they won't. I'm not. I'm running on into the election season. Now you're going to be in a world of hurt, and I'm just going to drag it out. And isn't this possible? It is also possible. Somebody put Trump will not save anyone. I'm not saying what Trump will do. I'm saying what Trump will say. There could be a vast difference between what Trump does and what Trump says. I'm telling you that Trump is politically savvy. You cannot underestimate his political inclinations. And what kind of person who understands politics wouldn't use everything, every weapon at their disposal to fight swat their enemies? And Trump is politically savvy. I'm not saying, somebody said Trump will save. I'm not saying he will or won't save America. That's not, the position is not what Trump will or won't do. I'm talking about the rhetoric that will be used. RFK Jr., you might like him. You might be pissed at him for what he said about Israel, but you know what rhetoric he's going to use. Cornel West, you might like him. He might be too far to the left for you, whatever the case. But you know the rhetoric that he will use. What people will do when they get in office, who knows? But I can tell you this, that as this gets closer to the election, there will be a number of people running for office that will beat the hell out of the Democrats, utilizing the disaster that is the Ukraine proxy war. That's coming. And if I'm the Russians, I'm going to let that dynamic play out. You started this war. You want this war. You got it. What I know is that the Ukrainians can't really advance on me and cause much damage. I can advance on them and cause lots of damage, or I can sit here and let this thing play out and do all the other things I'm doing around the world. And then, as the U.S. has to always worry, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I could punch anytime I want to. Might be tomorrow. And they're like, we got to prepare the Russians. And every now and then, if I'm Vladimir Putin, I go meet with my leaders, and then I leak something that potentially we're about to do a gigantic counteroffensive, and everybody goes, oh crap, is this going to be the time? I just keep dragging it out on you. Might be tomorrow, man. You never know when that's coming. But one of these days. And you have to be worried to death about that. You got to roll over every night saying, is the night going to be the night that the Russians come over the top, and launch their counteroffensive. I put it like this. Power is only power until you use it. Then it becomes force. It's much more powerful for me to stand there and for you to say, if you could say, Garland can kick my ass anytime he wants to, man. Why ain't he doing it? When's he going to do it? Is it going to be tomorrow? It's much more powerful for me if I don't do it. The potential for power, and power is potential. The potential to do something is not force. So I will maintain, as long as the Russians maintain the potential to use their military power, they have their adversaries on their back foot. They have their adversaries waiting on their toes. What's going to happen? They had their adversaries' nervous system is the equivalent of fingernails on a chalkboard at all times. Oh my God, is today? Are they going to do? What are they going to do next? Will they punch? Will they shoot? Will they attack? As long as you don't, That's what they're doing. You got them dancing. Keep them dancing. If I'm the Russians, I'm gonna keep them dancing. And every now and then, I'm gonna leak a rumor. And every now and then, I'll punch a little bit over here. Oh my God, they're amassing a column of armor, and they're gonna advance. And then they're gonna come back. Then I'll leak some rumors about Belarus. Oh my God, they got 1,000,000 men in Belarus waiting to come out of it. Oh no! And then another massive missile attack and drone attack. Does this mean that they're about to? Is this presaging something? Boom, boom. I'm gonna keep them dancing because I don't have to attack, because I got a broader strategy that involves, it's a worldwide strategy that involves my allies, that involves my Eurasian coalition. So I think Russia's rope-a-dope theory is they're exhausting their opponents. The only question is what they will consider, how they will evaluate that exhaustion. Will the Russians say, because when your opponent is exhausted, you come off the ropes and you punch them. Now you knock them out. Will they say my adversary is exhausted when the Ukrainian troops can no longer really launch effective counteroffensives and now their time? Will they use a kinetic marker to say, based on the situation on the ground in Ukraine, that's when I'll decide whether to come out and knock these people out and launch my counteroffensive? Or will they use other metrics? Will they be saying, we got to wait until BRICS is set up. We got to wait till China does this. We got to wait till Iran has this set up. We got to wait till we got our Arctic Sea route and this and that. Will we wait? Will they have other metrics that they'll use to finally say, okay, we can launch our counteroffensive because they're weak, because this has happened and that's happened and this has happened in the Security Council. And now one of the things they may want to do is see what the winter looks like, because we know that the potential is there for catastrophic energy problems for Europe in the winter. So what happens if the Russians say, one of the weapons, one of the things, one of the dynamics that we think will affect the decisions of the US empire is what happens in Europe economically and the level of pushback that they get. So what if they say, we want to see how this winter road plays out. We want to see if France and Germany and all these, the Netherlands, whoever the hell, if they struggle really, really bad through the winter to the point where they're calling the US saying, you got to get us out of this mess. We need Russian energy and we need it yesterday, to the point where the Russians can say, yeah, you sure do. We'd be happy to bargain an into this thing and you can get all the Russian. Look at this, like the Chinese water torture, where you tie a man up and you put a glass of delicious water just out of his reach, where no matter how much he reaches, he can't get that water. And he stares and he finally dies of thirst with water just out of his reach. Well, what if you're Russia and you say, we're going to do that to Germany? We're going to do that. You just call them every now and then. Hey guys, hey Schultz, what's happening? Nothing. I hear it's cold in Berlin. Yeah, we're freezing our doodads off. Yeah, just wanted to let you know, man, we got a lot of oil over here, a lot of gas, a lot of energy. We're having picnics. What we're going to do. We've decided some of these global south, our storage tanks are really getting too full. We got so much, we got gas, we got oil, we got all this stuff. Our storage tanks are full. We just give some of it away so we can just pump more of it out. We've decided to call some of the global south countries. Now, granted, it's warm there and, tropical. They don't really need it, but we're just going to give it to them. What the hell? Maybe they can sell it. Call them. Maybe you can buy it from them. I don't know. We're going to call, Molly, Smolly, Folly, all of them. And we're going to say, hey, guys, you want some energy? And you know what? Last time we called them, we offered to them for free. They wouldn't take it. Isn't that the strangest thing? What do you think there, Schultz? Schultz is going to be like, yeah, well, can we have some? Oh, yeah, we'd love to give it to you, but some asshole blew up the pipeline. We pump it right over. Oh man, life would be great for us. We could get the money. You guys could get it. It would be great. But some idiot, I don't know, Ukrainian sailboaters, the way I hear it, sailed out to the middle, dropped a couple divers down, and blew the hell out of your pipeline. So it's unfortunate. Kind of sucks to be you. Hey, best of wishes. But I'm just saying, if you know anybody who needs some free gas, we got more than we know what to do with. We're just like, we stopped charging our people for it. We called the Russian people and said, hey, look, we're no longer charging for gas, electricity, things like that. Why don't you in fact, what we're doing now is we're making so much money off the additional energy that we're selling now. And we got so much extra. We're literally paying Russians to take it off our hands. And we're sending the police around to check their apartments because we've decided everybody's home has got to be turned up to 80 so we can burn this gas off, and you're supposed to walk around in your you're supposed to walk around in like swimming trunks, bathing suits all winter long, so it's nice and warm. We've asked them to boil water. That's a nice thing to do. Run their hot water. Gotta get that hot water. Keep going. Keeps the pipes clean. You know what I mean? But we just got a lot of extra energy, and we don't know what the hell to do with it. And really shame about that pipeline, dude. Toodles, click. That's what I do if I'm Putin. That's what I'm doing if I'm Putin. Every month or every week or so, I'm calling Schultz to remind him, man, we got a lot of energy over here, bruh. Shame what happened to your pipelines. It's unfortunate, what an unfortunate turn of events. Woo, man, that's bad. What kind of asshole would do that to you? Certainly not a friend. Hey, you better call those Ukrainians. You know how they are with their sailboats. 6 or 7 of them jump on the sailboats. They're sailing right out, and kabloom, they blowing up people's friggin' pipelines. Oh, by the way, you send them some more Leopard tanks and things like that. We've blown up all the ones that they have, and we our guys need practice. We got all these new tank rounds we need to. So anyway, just send them some more Leopard tanks. We'll continue to blow them up too. Have a nice day. Talk to you next week on our weekly talk. Have a nice day. Peace. I'm out. Click. I mean, that's what you might as well do if you're Putin. You might as well call them and throw an elbow every now and then, have a little fun, do a little ribbon with these guys, right? A little bit of a shucking and jiving, and just hang up. Send them something. Send a Schultz a bottle of, I don't know, nice bottle of vodka or something. Hey guys, sorry to hear about your cold situation there. It's unfortunate. Have a nice day. That's what I'm doing. So if I'm Russia, I'm just dragging this thing out, man. What's the rush? What really is the rush for Russia? There is none. And of course, if you are the Ukrainians, let's go to that part of it. We'll end with that. If in fact the Ukrainians decide that they want to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, right? What they're finally going to say to the Ukrainian women and children is, most of your guys are gone. A lot of your guys, all the young ones are done. It's over for them. They're wiped out for the most part. Now you got some left that are 18 to 80. And they're next. They're next. This is a country. Ukraine is going to be a country of women and children. The men, done. Now, so let's just say you're able to accomplish this. I would imagine that the Ukrainian women might have some level of objection to this, but let's go forward. The Ukrainians are now able to go grab every poor schmuck from 1860 off the hospital beds, mental institutions, prisons, hiding in their basements. They grab them all, drag them out, and off they go. And now it's, let's say, October 15th. And you got every man, and they got, one leg, one eye, arm cut off, whatever. Every poor bastard that you can find, you pulled him out of his basement, and you're like, now we're going to train you. You got to average schmucks off the street. And they're now going to be soldiers. How well trained are these guys going to be? How long is it going to take you? What are you going to give them? 6 weeks of training, 8 weeks of training? And in the dead winter time, you're going to send them out and say, okay, go fight the Russians. Here, we got 1 million men. And let me ask you this. What are you going to arm them with? What are you going to do? Are you going to call over the U.S. again? We got 1 million men, and we need tanks. Oh, by the way, none of them really know how to run tanks. How long does it take to train a person to run a tank? About a year. We ain't got a year. Let's train them for a week. We'll teach them how to push the clutch in and hit forward. And we'll teach them how to fire. They probably really won't know how to use the sighting, the thermal sighting and all that, but we'll just say aim down range and let some rounds fly, right? And unfortunately, with some of these things, if you don't know what you're doing, you can get your damn hands cut off in a tank. You're going to get, things are going to swing around with the barrel and bop you in the head. It's easy to get yourself killed in a tank if you don't know what the hell you're doing. So some of these people, unfortunately, will get in a tank and blow themselves up before they even get out of the garrison, right? So you're going to take, let's just say 2 million men. Green as grass, raw as raw rolling papers. I don't know. I think it's something. And you're going to say to these guys, first, we're going to train you. So now you're into dead winter. You're going to train them. Now, what the women in Ukraine are home, they don't even have anybody to mow the grass. I mean, guys at least are good at snow removal. We may not be real bright, but we can shovel the snow on the walk. Nobody to do that. All the men are gone to war. All the women are there. They don't have anybody to pick anything up. It's heavy. Nothing. Nobody's going to go to work and make any money. So I guess it would become a U.S. welfare country, as it is now, but even more so. No households will have a male there to act as the breadwinner. 3 million, let's say you get 2 million men, 2 million households that the breadwinner's out of here, at least one of the breadwinners. So now you have a country full of welfare. Every family, there's a woman sitting there with 4 kids. My husband used to have a job, but now they sent him to die on the front. And of course, after they all die on the front, which they will, then you just have a country full of women and children with all the men gone. Every one of them. It's over for Ukraine. They cannot repopulate the country. But so you get these guys and you train them. I don't know. You throw them out there in the winter. You got to have guns. Now what you have to have is 2 million uniforms, 2 million guns. And if every one of them gets 1 round, that's 2 million rounds right there. You haven't fired a round. You give them 1 round, which they'll probably use to shoot themselves in the freaking head rather than get torn apart by artillery. But you give each of them 10 rounds. That's 20 million rounds. 10 rounds. 10 rounds ain't gonna get it done for a firefight, my friend. So let's say you give them each 150 rounds times 2 million. That's 300 million rounds, and they can't get through a firefight. One. And what are they going to do? Assault the Russian positions? They don't have tanks, and they're untrained, and they don't want to fight. And do you have enough armored personnel carriers? Do you have any kind of armor or something? You got 2 million men. That's all you have. You don't have armored personnel carriers to put them in, and if you had them, they're not trained to use them. You don't have tanks to put them in. If you had them, they ain't trained to use them. Mortars, all these things that they need to fight, they ain't really trained, but you can train them. Give them minimal training, and they're going to assault the Russian positions. You talk about human wave assault; they will be mowed down. What good is 2 million men that don't have the necessary hardware to fight? What are they going to naked soldiers? And when I mean naked, I mean no military hardware, no armored personnel carriers, nothing to ride in. They won't even have trucks. Maybe an old Toyota truck worked pretty good for the Afghanistans. Afghans, I don't know. They beat the U.S. with old Toyota trucks. So maybe the secret to defeating the Russians is the same thing that was the secret to beating the U.S. 2006 with a 4-cylinder engine, the 6-cylinder especially. They last for damn ever. You should get one. Anyway, but so if you're able to do what you're able to do, even if you win, you lose, as I always like to say, even if 2 million men are now under arms, you got to have 2 million uniforms. You got to have 2 million guns. You got to have probably 300 million rounds to even start fighting. Even begin, right? And 2 million men, they're going to have to mass in huge areas, which the Russians are going to just bomb to hell. They're going to strafe with machine guns. You got to put a big bunch of people, and they're going to be naked. Where are you going to put 2 million men? You got to put them in barracks. You think the Russians ain't going to figure out where the barracks of 2 million men are and send missiles in to blow them to hell? You've got a gigantic targets now of men, and you don't have anything. The only way they can attack the Russians is if you take 250,000 men in this particular area and you say, here's what you're going to do. The Russians are that way. You're on foot. Challenge. Walk through these minefields. I don't think they're going to be thrilled about doing it. You're not going to have the hardware you need. NATO doesn't have the hardware. They don't have the guns. They don't have the bullets. They don't have the things they need. So the idea that there's going to be a mass mobilization of 1 million, 2 million men does not address the issue of the necessary military hardware needed to support 2 million men. And then, might I add, those men might want to eat every now and then. They might want water. So now you have to have the supply lines to bring food for 2 million men, and water and underwear and toilet paper and everything they need to survive on the front lines as they're getting ripped to shreds. I'm just going to throw this out there. It don't sound like a real strong plan. but you can give it a shot. So that's where we are. Additionally, I think, let me show you something. I will address one. Let's do one article. Let's do this. NATO's Ukraine strategy has failed, ex-Italian prime minister. And he goes on to say, NATO's attempts to inflict defeat on Russia and Ukraine have completely missed their mark as Moscow continues to stand tall in Kiev's faltering counteroffensive of Western sanctions. Former Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said, right? And he said, so he goes on, he says, there's been no disintegration of Russia's military and paramilitary departments. There has been no retreat due to the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the Prime Minister stressed. Meanwhile, the harsh sanctions imposed by the West on Russia have not bankrupted or crippled its economy, noting that the long-stated goal of isolating Moscow has by no means achieved. So what he's saying is this: militarily, right? Let's go with the three different things that he's saying. Militarily, right? There's been no disintegration of Russia's military. We didn't win that one. We lost it. He says it's not bankrupted Russia's or crippled its economy. So militarily, we failed. Economically, we failed. And last, he says that the goal of isolating Moscow has by no means achieved. That's diplomatically and politically. So we thought we could take Russia out militarily, no dice. Politically, sad, no such luck. Economically, diplomatically, screwed, blued, and tattooed is what we are. We got no choice, no chance, right? So he's saying, and in addition, Conte claimed that the Ukraine conflict, quote, has exposed the EU's inability to develop an effective common strategy and to express autonomous political and economic leadership. Instead, it has become yet another indicator of the bloc's kowtowing to the U.S. So then he goes on to say, look, man, it's exposed us. It has exposed us as not, here's what is exposed, that there's no such place as Europe, that there's just the U.S., the U.S. vassals on the European continent, that there's no nations on U.S. There's no independent nations. There's no, the people in the Europe do not choose who leads them. Ain't nobody leading them. What did Baerbock say? Annalena Baerbock said, look, I don't care what the people here say. We don't give a damn what the voters say. We're going to do what the U.S. told us to do. The U.S. has given us a mission, and that's what we're doing. We don't care about these voters. What difference does it make? They ain't choosing us. We don't work for them. We work for the Biden team. We work for the neocons in D.C. They can go straight to hell. That's the position of the leaders in Europe. The European people can go straight to hell. We will propagandize them, and the dupes that believe our propaganda, hooray, they'll run around with a blue and yellow flag. But those who don't, who actually want us to act on their behalf, not happening. Ain't happening. Sorry, you are SOL. You are out of luck. And this guy gets Giuseppe Conte just said, look, man, we don't choose that. This is no strategy, nothing. If I'm the Russians, I'm letting this play out. I'm gonna let it keep going, and I'm gonna wait. And now, if I put it like this, I think the Ukrainians are saying we're going to do a massive counteroffensive. Why? Because the U.S. empire is telling them to do that. Because the Biden team is calling them, saying, hey, man, what's going on? We're running out of soldiers. We lost 43,000 killed last month, which means we lost another 100 and some thousand wounded. Oh, yeah, most unfortunate. You got more soldiers? Yeah, we got just like old crippled people and stuff like that. We'll use them. Bye. Click. That's the Biden people said. You got anybody else left? Well, yeah, but are they alive? Yeah. Can they die? Well, the fact is that they're alive, which means, I mean, theoretically, they can die. Then that's what that's their job. They're alive. Time for them to die. Bye. See you later. Boom. That's what's happening. They're Ukrainians. You know, I'll end by saying this. One of the things that's happened here is that because the U.S. empire feels threatened, it's come out and shown who it really is. Kind of like those old vampire flicks. You know, I love werewolf and vampire flicks. I'm old school when it comes to that, right? And in a lot of vampire flicks, you may have heard me use this analogy before. The vampire, if you ever watch female vampire flicks, they're the most beautiful, alluring women ever. The male vampire flicks, most of the time, the male guy is very handsome. They're very sexy. They're very attractive to the opposite sex, right? So you'll see this where this vampire, and many of the vampire flicks are this gorgeous thing where everybody sees it and says, wow, I want that. Remember, for years, people were like, yes, they watch the movies and I want to be part of the US. I want to go to the US. I want to move to the US. Yay, the land of milk and honey, right? Well, I remember one vampire movie where this guy goes in and he's, looking at the vampires and they're all beautiful and sexy and everything like that. And then we'll think about From Dawn to Dusk, right? These women look gorgeous, the most beautiful women in the world. Or the guy, think of Fright Night. The guy was a handsome guy, attractive guy, tall, blah, blah, blah. But just before they get ready to bite, or if they're attacked, they turn into the real themselves, and people look at them and they look like an evil demon. Their long hands are long and they get all, long and evil looking, and they've got big tail and their fangs come out and their faces get all scrunchy and their ears get pointy and they start looking all evil and demonic, right? The real them comes out when they're threatened or when they have to attack or something like that, or when they get ready to bite, right? The US empire has gone around the world and faked about how this beautiful thing it was, and now it feels threatened because Russia and China and other countries are growing. They're getting more powerful. They're pushing back. It feels that its domination is slipping away. And now in Ukraine, the real evil, ugly demon is being revealed. And now people can look at Ukraine, and all these countries are looking at Ukraine and saying, ooh, God, oh man, that's a US proxy war. Man, I wouldn't want to be them. They are so screwed, right? I think additionally, countries around the world, a lot of people around the world are going to be very reticent. Smaller countries are going to be very reticent to pick up the baton from Ukraine to be the next cannon fodder victim of the U.S. empire. That there's a lot of countries sitting around, China, that the U.S. is trying to set up, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines, that the people there, as longer this goes on, the roar is going to get louder and louder. They're already starting to get some pushback, but it's going to get louder and louder. The roar will get louder, and it will be, damn it, we don't want to be Ukraine. We finally see what the U.S. empire is, and we don't like it. It is ugly and it is horrifying. And look what these damn people did to Ukraine, and now they want to do it to us. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a huge problem, because look, if you're Saudi Arabia, if you're other countries that have been aligned with the US, right? You look at that and you say, now we got to get out from under the US. Why? Because sooner or later they're coming for us. We ain't going to be that. If our options are to try to loosen ourselves, to try to get away now, to make our move now, and whatever heat we got to take, we got to take it, that we're far better off to try to distance ourselves from these friggin' psychos now, because we don't want to be Ukraine. Nobody wants to be Ukraine, except the neo-Nazis in Ukraine, because they're neo-Nazis and that's what they do. The US has created this monster. Even when the US, it's going to be a Frankenstein monster. At some point, the US created this neo-Nazi, highly influenced government. They empowered the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And at some point, they're going to have to face that. At some point, they're going to wake up and they're going to have to deal with that. At some point, they may say, look, we want a deal. And those neo-Nazis will say, deals, we're neo-Nazis. What part of that don't you understand? Deals ain't what we do. And they're going to have to. The funny thing is, the US is going to have to denazify Ukraine itself if it wants to get a deal with the Russians. All right, let's take a look. I got to get my act together because I got to get ready to do the mama of all talk shows with George Galloway. So let's go. Oh, let us look. Hopefully we have some super chats, because that's the best questions, man. We get great questions. Oh, let's see who we got here. Bradley Arnold says the Russians are pursuing an overarching strategy of impoverishment. Ukraine and the West are bleeding heavily now, $2 trillion deficits. Yep, yeah. That's part of it. Joseph Curry, thank you, Joseph Curry. Hey, let's go here. Sparky, make Ukraine Russia again. Don't even leave a patch name Ukraine, lest it be a NATO playground. Yeah, I think you're getting close, brother. I think you're getting close. Sparky, build a better world with bricks. It looks like that's what's going down. Anoon says the Ukrainians would have been better off with General Grievous planning for them than so-called Western generals. Yeah, you're right. Oh, they're screwed. planning for the, they don't even have, they're just a boxing glove put on the fist of the U.S. empire. The West had Prigozhin and his Wagner colleagues knocked off because Wagner was set to be a decent stopgap in Niger. I don't know what happened with it, the Prigozhin. I'm waiting to hear more. David, thanks a lot. Okay, anybody else? We're looking. Okay. Sparky says, seems like the West puppet leader of Nigeria, Tinubu, may not have control over Nigerian military who aren't keen on invading Niger. No Nigeria, no ECOWAS. So the West needlessly killed Prigozhin. Yeah, well, the thing about it is they're trying to turn Western Nigeria into Ukraine also. That's what they want to do. Nigeria, your turn to be Ukraine. Go in there and fight, God knows how any number of countries. Let's look at Rockfin. Anybody? Hey, we've heard some people from Rockfin. Eleanor Johnson, thanks a lot. Carolyn Zarimba, thanks a lot. And I think that's it. Mo Easy says, heard of the Russian supersonic bombers destroyed by Ukrainians near the border of Finland. The airfield was located northwest of Russia, far from Ukraine. I don't know. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. So unfortunately, I don't. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Don't forget, if possible, if you're able, then you can, if you're able, I got PayPal, I've got Patreon, and of course, buymeacoffee.com/GarlandNH. You can go to Buy Me a Coffee where, well, Buy Me a Coffee is great. It'll just say, buy Garland a coffee for $5. How many do you want to buy? 1, 2, 3, whatever. But now you can actually do just like Patreon and you can become a monthly. Hey, let's buy Garland a monthly coffee of $5 for the channel. Oh man, I'm so excited. I've got things set up to turn this room into a studio. I've got my guy who's out of the country right now. When he gets back, he's going to be working with me, saving money. That was, and I'm telling you, I really appreciate it. And the money that's being used for this is the money that was donated to the channel by everyone. And hopefully I'm going to turn this room into a really nice studio. I got a really brilliant person, and I want to appreciate everybody who has contributed. I would hope by October, maybe. But my guy will be back, I think, Wednesday, and we can get started on the planning phase. But I told everybody I'm planning on changing this into a studio, and that's happening for sure. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot to all of those who donate on Patreon, on PayPal, on Cash App, and of course, Buy Me a Coffee, where you can either do a one-time donation, or you can make it monthly, just like Patreon. Last but not least, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. The same way I'm locked out of my account on Twitter, my verified account that I pay for verification for every month, I'm locked out because they can't verify the owner. That one, the same way I'm locked out of that one, I could be locked out on any given day of YouTube. And if that happens, you can simply go to rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com/Garland Nixon. So don't wait. Go there. It costs nothing. Become a member of my Rockfin channel ASAP. And if you can afford it, become a subscriber on Rockfin. You don't have to, but that helps support the channel for those who can afford to do it. $14.99 a month. And if you can do that, if you can sign up for a year, they give you a couple months free. So it comes to like $12.40 something. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. I got to get ready. I got to do the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway. I'm going to be on at 7:20 p.m. UK time, which would be 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's 1:53 Eastern Standard Time. Do the math, my friends. Do the math. I'm out. Make sure, did I miss? I didn't miss anyone. Thanks.